What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hawk Talk on Melrose. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see a new face in this episode. Welcome back to the podcast, Kolby. What's going on, man?
Oh, it's going good. I wouldn't exactly say new face.
Well,
It's been a few years. Actually, I was looking at my time hop today. 4 years ago today, I think we launched this thing. And it's good to be back. It's good to talk Hawkeye football, especially, with the season right around the corner. We're a little over a week away from games that actually matter. And so I kind of had this feeling today when I was sitting here looking at Twitter and Hawkeye Report and all that stuff and reading the forums. I'm like, all right, I'm just sick of that.
ready to go.
I'm ready for some real life stuff, and actually see some of this stuff in action that we've been hearing about.
Weren't you on one episode last year? I thought you were with me and Tyler and
I
I.
might have been actually, and honestly,
Yeah,
if
I
it was
think we
anything,
were.
it was either after the Iowa State game or,
Yeah.
maybe that, I don't know. It was weird. I had gotten COVID right in between all of the season. I don't know. It was all a mess. But it's good to be back. I'm excited to
Yeah.
get this season underway.
Yep.
Good
And
to
as
see you, Kolby.
always, I was just gonna say your name, Tyler. I can't forget about you. I mean, you're here like always as well.
Yeah,
So
almost forgot about me.
I wasn't able to listen to last week's episode. Where were you?
Oh, well, I went home to see my family. Colin texted me after it. He's like, by the
Yeah.
way, I did a kind of an impromptu
Episode. Yeah.
episode, and I was
Man,
like, oh, well, go for it.
I've tried to do podcast. Props to John Miller. I can't do
It's hard
podcasts on
doing it
my
by
own. It's
yourself.
hard.
It's
Like you
so
run out
hard.
of things to talk about.
Yeah.
I tried doing it one time and I think I lasted like three
I
minutes.
I was telling Tyler because
Good to have a forum.
the one that I just did on Sunday was 20 minutes, but like I was like fumbling words sometimes because when I do it with you guys, like I'm pausing when I'm not talking and thinking, doing that,
Yeah.
it's just you're constantly talking, you can't really take a break and it kind of sucks. So yeah, it was
I feel
it
like
was
it's
definitely tough.
definitely harder to
Yeah,
prepare for
it was
that. Yeah.
definitely tough. So well, let's talk a little bit about the Kids Day. People that listen to my impromptu episode the other day, I really discussed a lot of things, but you guys might have some thoughts on that. Kolby, I guess I can start with you. And actually, if you want to say what you sent this morning that you read off one of the boards, some unfortunate news, you can kind of go in that too as well. So
Yeah, going into Kids Day, obviously the big question is how does Spencer look? What's the QB competition like? How's the offensive line gelling together? And the big thing that's kind of been coming up over this camp has been what's going on with our wide receiver production. Is Keegan Johnson, is that an issue that's going to linger all year? Is Brody Breck going to step up to the plate? I mean, at this point, we're down to a couple guys that are on scholarship right now going into this first game. Unfortunate news today that I've read that Nico Regani is going to be sidelined for at least a few games with an ankle issue that happened either on Kids Day or shortly after. So that's another. I mean, that's another hit to this to that wideout room that's pretty thin, already. And I think early when Charlie Jones left, it was one of those things where it sucked, but we all kind of felt like we had the horses in the room to kind of make up for that
well,
between Arland and
yeah,
Keegan and
three guys.
Brody and Nico and some of those guys coming in. And now it's just looking like we're going to have guys step up, some walk on guys, and hopefully Jacob Bostic is ready to play. So that was one of the big things going into Kids Day. I'll say coming out of Kids Day, I was very encouraged with what I saw. I wasn't able to look too much, but from what I read, it looked like Spencer had a pretty commanding lead of the offense. And of the number one unit. And it looks like, I think it's something that we all probably kind of figured, even dating back to last year, that it was his job to lose. And so, I mean, I think it's one of those things that we just have to hope that he can come into this season with a different sense of confidence and lead this team. Because if he can't, we'll go as far as where he can take us. And we don't have the benefit of the doubt with our schedule this year. Like we did last year. And I'm not saying that we couldn't have still won, 10 games last year with a different schedule, but the way our offense moved the ball, it probably wouldn't have happened. We were probably more of an 8-4 type of team. Or even, I mean, looking at stats, I mean, we are close to being a 7-5 type team. And, so I think that really everything hinges on that. But overall, I was excited, to see some of the things I saw and read about, on the kids' day in terms of running backs looking good, even with Gavin Williams being out, and the offensive line starting to gel. And, I don't even need to talk about Phil Parker's defense. We all know that that's going to be a strength again this year. We might not see the interception rate that we've seen the last 3 years, but man, his defense is looking all world again. And so I came away very encouraged for Kids Day, but obviously still a lot of concerns.
Yeah. What about you, Tyler? I mean, anything that
Yeah, I think Kolby summarized it really well. I mean, obviously it's, you want to see how the offense is doing. And obviously it doesn't help now that, and I didn't actually know that about Nico. So that's fantastic. But that doesn't help Spencer at all. Right. I mean, obviously you want to give him as much weapons as possible. And, that's definitely a little concerning, but I agree. I think Spencer it's his job to lose for sure.
I think especially now with the receivers out, we're going to be, and I thought we were going to do this anyways, deploying more of like a 2 tight end set, maybe even a 3 tight end sets. I mean, you're going to have to. I mean, if all these guys are out, and who knows about Keegan? I told you that today, Kolby. I was like, this Keegan injury, it sounds like he's going to be back within the next week, but it's like, man, like, well, will he be 100% healthy? Like, what's going on here? Is it going to linger?
He's missed a lot of time. So
I think an ideal situation, obviously in Kirk's mind would probably be to have all those guys, obviously, but if he can get Keegan back out there, hopefully this week, get him going, getting in kind of game speed, and then hopefully Brody Breck's able to take a step in the last 2.5 weeks of camp, because we just need that depth there. If another guy goes down, at some point it's like, do you look to the defensive side of the ball for some players to come over? Because we just don't have the horses there.
No.
Another thing, obviously going into Kids Day, I think people were very curious to see if there was any noticeable changes to the offense. I necessarily wasn't looking for that, because I just don't think a Kids Day practice is where you're going to really see it. It's a glorified practice.
Well, and let's also say this,
and you're not going to see different concepts.
Defense is always going to be looking better. If your defense isn't looking better, I think that then you have a problem. Like,
I think, all we've been hearing from a lot of the players and the coaches so far going into this from this offseason is that John Budemeyer has been a huge asset. And so I'm curious come September, when these games get underway, to see if, is the offense actually, have they taken a step forward? Have they changed some of their concepts? Have they made it easier on Spencer to get rid of the ball? Now it comes down to him to actually get rid of the ball. Is our offensive line going to block for him? Because we all know that, he's probably not going to escape the pocket, which is unfortunate. But that's just kind of the cards that, we're dealt with. And I think Spencer just has to do a lot better job this year, sitting in that pocket and trying to find a window. I mean, we all overreacted yesterday, and I'll be the first to admit when Dave Revson from Big Ten Network tweeted that photo or that video of Spencer, throwing a pass right to Cooper DeJean, because
no, it wasn't. I thought Cooper was the one that bull rushed and like almost like
whoever it was. I think that was that almost. I mean, that is PTSD for all of us fans. It's plays that we've saw numerous times last year that instead of either one just taking the sack, or 2 trying to move up in the pocket or make something happen with your feet, instead he freaks out and just throws it 5 yards behind his receiver right into the defender's hands. And it's like, that's stuff that, you can say all summer, oh, Spencer looks great. He went to the Manning Passing Academy, looked great, but he's not having people rush at him and try to sack him and take his head off. And so
he has the arm. We know that, but it's everything else.
I think until we get to that first game, we're not going to know. I mean,
I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah. And would I love to see us come out on the first drive and us go right down the field with Spencer leading the way? Hell freaking yeah, I am, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
I told Tyler that I'm giving him another chance, but we go in that first game and we see the same things from last year. It's going to be hard. I mean, it's not just me. It's going to be the entire 70,000 fans. He's on a very short leash. Like, I think for a lot of fans, they're giving him a second, like, all right, here's your third chance. We're going to give it to you. But if you're going to look exactly like you did,
it doesn't get any easier either. So.
I don't think the coaching staff has much of a leash for him either. I think that, I think it was pretty evident on Saturday. as much as none of us wanted to believe, but Joey Levis is probably at least a year away. He did not look anywhere near ready, but Alex Padilla looked like he could command an offense. And I think if things don't go well to start the season, I think that Ferentz won't be afraid to make that move. But I if he does make that move, I am not feeling good as a Hawkeye fan the rest of the year. I think that pretty much proves that when you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any. And I'm not saying that I don't think Alex is a capable quarterback. I just don't think it's going to set anyone up for success if Spencer comes out and struggles. Alex and they send Alex to take, because if that's the case, clearly, Ferentz
clearly Alex wasn't good enough to start, and
he didn't. And so I think we're just going to be in a situation where if Spencer struggles out the gate, I think it could be a year just like last year, which is so unfortunate, and I hope it's not.
Well, and then if Alex struggles, what do? I don't want to get in that situation.
I mean, I would rather not go there. And I'm praying that Spencer, and I'm hopeful that Spencer takes a step forward. We're going to really need to see it to believe it. And we'll find out a lot come September 3rd.
I want to say I felt really good. I know I texted you guys or texted you and Austin. I felt really good after the Kids Day scrimmage. Like, we actually, our offense, I mean, obviously it's one scrimmage, but then yesterday I almost kind of felt kind of worse because of kind of like that video that he put out of Petrus just throwing it 5 yards behind the receiver, easy interception, like seeing that. And then kind of seeing some of their tweets. Like, they said, like, the offense looking better, but he said something about like the passing was up and down today. So it's like, okay, like, what is, so I felt like a little worse about the offense after yesterday. I was kind of like, okay, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to blame all of our offensive problems on Spencer. There's enough blame to go around. The offensive line was absolutely terrible last year. So I will say, coming out of camp or the Kids Day scrimmage, I was very encouraged by what I saw in the running game and on the offensive line. And
that was without Richmond.
Yeah. I think we're a very young line. I don't think there's a single starter that's a sophomore or older. I can't remember what it is, but we're a young line and it's a big line. If the starters that what we think is going to happen between Richmond, Ellsbury, Logan Jones, Jennings, Dunker, and Connor Kolby, I mean, you're looking at like a line that's averaging probably around 310 pounds. And
last year was like 290, I saw.
Yeah.
292.
I mean, that's a Wisconsin type line. And so, I mean, I love that. I feel like that's going to be a strength as the year goes on. It might not be the first couple games, but that's another thing I was very encouraged about coming out of Saturday.
So yeah, I said that on that podcast I made Sunday. So I think the line's going to go Mason Richmond at left tackle, which, according to George Barnett, the offensive line coach, he said he thinks he could be elite at left tackle.
I do too. I mean, he showed horses. I mean, he showed capability.
I remember Tyler a couple weeks ago. I mean, you had him at, like, I think number 10 on your top 10.
I did.
What you saw last year, and if he takes that next step.
Yep, I did. I think he'll be good. I really do.
And then at left guard, I have Tyler Ellsbury, center Logan Jones, which I think he's going to be really good at center. It might take a while, but for things to really click with him. But you saw that clip today. I think I sent to you, Kolby, of him taking down Yaya, who's 300-pound defensive lineman, just take him right to the ground. Yeah. Left guard, that's one area, or no, right guard. I didn't know who would probably be there. I mean, do you think? Because if Connor Kolby is going to be at tackle, if he's switching from guard to tackle, which Ferentz kind of praises him for that, I mean, he thinks he's a natural tackle.
I mean, Connor Kolby is a natural tackle. He came into the program expecting to be a tackle. He played guard out of need, and I think he did so well there. The coaches just kind of expect him to be there, but I think Connor absolutely should be a player that plays the tackle position.
Then I think you play your best five at the right guard. Then
I think the right guard comes down to Jennings Dunking or whatever his name is, and Bo Stevens. It's between those two.
Okay.
And I know the staff is high on both of them. I've heard a lot more of this camp about Jennings. And then they love Tyler Ellsbury as well. You have to remember that both of those, Bo Stevens was a four-star player coming out of high school, and Tyler Ellsbury also was a four-star coming out of high school. So there's absolutely talent there. It's just a matter of getting these guys in a game and playing, and it certainly helps going against the front seven that Iowa is going to put on the field this
Mm-hmm.
year.
What are your what about it? Because I mentioned like Jack Plum and Nick DeJong are those two guys that probably won't, since they're more tackles. I mean, I mentioned those two guys because I know didn't Jack Plum like start last year for us? Or
I think Jack, Jack's been a guy that's been very loyal and has represented the university well. I just don't think he is actually taking that jump that the coaches have hoped.
Yeah.
He was absolutely destroyed last year by Aiden Hutchinson. And I mean, so were a lot of other tackles. Yeah, exactly. But it just, I think he struggled a lot last year. And I think the coaches were hoping for him to take that step. And I don't think they've seen it. And I think that's one of the reasons that they've moved Connor Kolby out to tackle. And so I think they're in the business of playing the 5 best linemen, regardless of where they are meant to be. I mean, the center position's different, but the rest of the 4 guys, they're going to play their 4 best guys and try to get them in position. And I think that's a good idea, especially with the kind of offense that we run.
Yeah.
It's so important on the zone blocking scheme. And so
I just hope that they stay healthy, because if we stay healthy, I feel confident at that position group.
But we're also building depth there, which is, you got players like, obviously Nick DeJong, he was playing pretty well last year before he got hurt. Coaches were still high on him. He's a good, capable backup. You have Michael Bolinski, who, at one point was thought to be the starting center this year until Logan Jones came over. He's a great player. I mean, he's a player that they've talked about. You have hopefully coming back from a medical reason, David Kov. Who the coaches were extremely high on, but he hasn't practiced all this camp, so he's set back. So I think there's depth there that they're building. It's just going to take a second.
Yeah. That was one thing I like with the Citrus Bowl. Obviously we lost, which sucked, but that was the one positive, is like, that was the first game. Like, you could just tell that like everything got built up to that game for the offensive line. Like, they played a great game, there was a reason. I mean, I think it was like 4.6 yards per carry. We ended up finishing that day.
And that's where we need to be. We need to be above 4.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we can be above 4, and then like Tyler said, I think last podcast, or like if we can get to about 60% completion percentage, if we can do those 2 things, I think our offense,
it has a chance.
I mean, what a stat. I mean, I cannot believe in the Ferentz era that we've only had 4 QBs over 60% on a season. I mean, that is just like, that's absurd. And that's when, like
that's not a quarterback.
Something's not right with offensive play calling. I mean, there's just something that is disconnected. And it's almost like, actually, I think Brian Ferentz alluded to it in the article that Chad had written for the Des Moines Register. It's like, it's embarrassing. It really is. Especially when the minimum for a player in the NFL these days, like if you're not completing over 60% of your passes as a quarterback, you're probably not going to get a chance. I mean, they gave Josh Allen a chance because of his intangibles, but like 60% is where, I mean, that's the money spot. That's where you should be.
Yeah.
That's not a lot. Yeah.
It's like going back to, like, I always tell this to Tyler, like with Brian Ferentz, he's been the offensive coordinator for 5 years. And like, you would think that after 5 years, I mean, some of the stuff that, we try to do, it obviously doesn't work. You would think that they would eventually be like, okay, yeah, we probably should do something different. And it just seems like we just do that. It's like going up, like playing Wisconsin, right? Like every year we try to, it's like, no, we got to be a little bit different. We're not going to beat Wisconsin trying to be who we are. But it just seems like every year we just do the same thing. It's like, you'd think at some point that they would realize that, okay, we got to change, or, something's not right here.
No excuses this year. Brian's not only the OC, but the quarterback's coach. So, hopefully that helps, but I mean,
I think having, like Kolby said, having that, what's his name? That quarterback analyst, what's his name, Vets?
Who? Oh, John Budemeyer.
Yeah.
From Wisconsin. I
think he will definitely help. It's just, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, no, 4 times under Ferentz era with, so there has to be something, like the offense has to be too complicated or something. And I've heard that from many people, that it takes so long to like learn our offense, and it makes 0 sense, because you would think if it was that way around, that offense would be really good if like it was a complicated offense.
I mean,
like it shouldn't be.
If there's so many intricacies, why are we not excelling at some of those intricacies? Like it's not like we're going out there and keeping a defense guessing every game.
No, it's
half
that's
the time
weird.
Half the time people in the stands are calling the plays that I was going to run on a 3rd down and 4. We know it's going to be either an outside zone to the short hash, and it's like, well, what's the point of that? And
Colin, you did that all last year. You did that how many times? You're like, well, here comes a run on 1st down. Here comes the short side of the field.
I was watching highlights. God, what game was it? It was a 3rd and 9, and we just did like a fullback run, or like we were in the shotgun and we handed off to Potterbaum.
And
that's
listen,
the type of stuff that it's like.
I get Ferentz's, field position battle game, but at some point you need to let some of that reign go and play to win and try to field an offense. Like I love that our defense gets us out of so many situations, but why are we constantly hoping that our defense gets us out of all these situations?
Yeah.
Let's let the defense do that when they need to, but not all game.
Long term, that is not a recipe for success.
It's not success. I mean, you saw that last year. You saw that last year in the Citrus Bowl. I mean, the defense played lights out most of that game. And it got to the point where our offense, 4 straight possessions, did absolutely stupid stuff and made our defense, and basically it made it look like our defense was terrible on that last drive, but it wasn't. 2 minutes and 29 seconds left that game. Jamari Harris intercepts the ball. The game should have been over.
Yeah.
Instead, we run 3 straight runs, get 3 yards, and now have to give it back to the offense. It's just like there's so many things that this offense can do that they need to get out of their own way.
Yeah. Well, Chad asked Brian that. He was like, would you have gone, or like, why you should have went for it on that 3rd, 4th one. And he agreed, but he's like, well, it's not really, up to me. It's up to, and he's like, I trust obviously what Kirk, but yeah, I mean, I go back to that too. It's like, it's 4th and 1. I mean, because like what Chad said, I mean, they still had to go down the field and score a touchdown. So even if we wouldn't have got there, but man, I know it's like 3 straight, the same run plays. It was like nothing different between the 3. It was the same exact, just little handoff, fullback or run, halfback dive, call it good. To kind of switch gears here, like something positive, because we're kind of being negative right now, which is obviously, with the offense, we can be till we see it. I am excited for some of these freshman players to come up. We can kind of go through some of these guys, but like Aaron Graves, I know he's not a freshman, but he's kind of a freshman because he didn't really play last year. Like Cooper DeJean, young guy, Xavier.
They're players we haven't seen before. And Caleb Johnson, the Patterson, the tight end that had a great day, kids day. Like we have some good looking, or not good looking, but good, freshmen, not good looking, but you know what I mean? They've been good looking is what I should say. There you go. I mean, honestly, and we're not trying to be the negative Nancy's. I think it's like you said, it's okay to be critical of an offense that for years now has fallen short of expectation, and not even it's not even expectation. It's just a little even being slightly average. Like,
we talk about it all the time. Yeah. Can they just be average?
Yeah. And I don't expect us to go out and put up 500 yards a game, but I expect the offense to play complementary football. And so I'm not trying to be negative, but I think like you were saying, I think it's all right to be critical, but one area of where I do want to give the staff props is recruiting. The past 3 years, it's been really encouraging as a fan to see where our recruiting has gone. They've kind of taken it to that next level. Now, obviously it will never be Alabama and Ohio State, but for a program like Iowa, if we can consistently recruit in that 20 to 30 range, I think we'll breed a lot of success. And so, I'm so excited for some of these young guys coming up. Like you said, that Addison Estrenga, who, was a baseball commit,
basketball.
Basketball. No, I think it was
basketball.
Iowa basketball.
Yeah, it was. I remember seeing that. It was basketball.
I'm pretty sure it was baseball, but don't quote me.
We'll have to check it.
I'm going to go check that out.
Anyways, you can continue talking. I'll check her out.
I'm so excited. I mean, you've heard great things about Caleb Johnson. When he committed, I think we were all, we looked at his highlights and we're like, that's a Big Ten running back. That's a running back that Wisconsin usually gets. And so, that was really exciting to see. And I love that some of these guys are getting chances. to go out there and make their name for themselves freshman year. So a defense is going to be so salty. I'm so excited to watch that. There is legit star power on every level of the football of the defense. Between Lucas Van Ness, who I think is going to I think he's the next. I think he could be the next All-American at Iowa on the defensive line. You have Aaron Graves, who, Coach Ferentz doesn't usually sing praises of freshmen like that. And so, when he does that is, that there's something brewing there. And then the linebacking core, we don't even need to really talk about them because we know what they're going to bring us. And as much as I love Seth Benson, I love the fact that, they're starting to play around with putting Justin Jacobs in on when they go to 4-3, just because I think he's such an athletic linebacker that can do a lot of things on the football field. He can cover, he can hit, he can do all that. So I'm just excited about this defense. I think it's going to be a very opportunistic defense. I think Phil Parker is going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those years where he's not going to be afraid to pin his ears back and go after the quarterback because he knows what he has in the back seven. So I'm excited.
Do you think it will be, obviously it's going to be Riley Moss and, not the first game for Jamari Harris, but it will be after that. Do you think the safeties will be Quinn Schulte and then obviously Kayvon Merriweather, but do you think it will be Quinn Schulte?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I think there's room for a lot of movement, to be honest with you. When we're in our 4-2-5 with the cash player, obviously I think Dejean, I can never say his name right. Is it Dejean?
I think it's
Dejean,
but I could be wrong too.
But
I don't know.
I think he's probably going to be that player at the cash position. But I also think he could play cornerback or safety. So I do, however, I think Terry Roberts is a great cornerback in this. I don't know if he's going to necessarily be playing every down after Jamari Harris come back, because I think Jamari Harris is a really good cover guy. But it's just great to see. I think Xavier,
a ton of versatility.
Yeah. What about Xavier? I think
X is a player. I think he's a player, and they've already said that he's going to play. It's just a matter of finding where he can, because Phil feels that good about his defense. I also think TJ Hall is another player that they're really excited about. Yeah. So,
and then Diaz Fernandez, I've heard some good things.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that? The Sebastian? No, I forgot what
Sebastian
his name.
Castro. So I was reading today. I guess he looked great in the scrimmage too. So obviously there's just not enough spots on the field for all these guys, but I think Phil feels really comfortable with whoever he's putting out.
Well, and I going back to Quinn Schulte. I was telling Tyler, he's the type of guy that going in, you're just kind of but it's he could be the next Jake Chavos, who was really good for us, or Jack Kerner, guys that come in, they're not highly recruited. You don't hear it. You never heard of them before. You're kind of hesitant to really be but then they end up actually being very good at
they just fit the system really well.
And they do a really good job. Jack Kerner, he was a hell of a safety for us. Very underrated.
And Quinn coming out of high school, he's extremely athletic. So I think the program is really excited about what he could bring to the table. So we'll see what happens.
So going back, so do you think all those players that we just mentioned, none of them will probably redshirt, I'm guessing, this year? Or it's going to be really hard to.
Ferentz has all but said Graves is not redshirting.
Xavier probably won't, because I'm sure he will play especially special teams.
Selfishly, would I like Xavier to be able to redshirt, because I think we're good enough to not need him this year. Yes, but I think he's so talented that he's going to play.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, if you get him out there, he's gonna make an instant impact, and you're gonna
he is.
How do you not?
But also, that's what I'm saying. It's if he's redshirted, I would be all right, we're okay. We're okay this year without a player
What about if Gavin and LaShawn stay healthy this year, which it's gonna be hard to do to say complete, but if those two stay healthy, that's gonna be a good 1-2 punch. Do you see Caleb or that Patterson guy playing much this year?
I think Caleb Johnson's absolutely in the rotation either way. I think, you need to have 3 running backs active at all times. You saw that last year with Tyler Goodson, you saw Ivory Kelly Martin, you saw Gavin Williams, and you saw LaShawn every now and then. I mean, he didn't play much, but I think Ferentz likes to have. I mean, and the staff was rumblings were that like that Devin Hilson was turning heads
Doing
until he
good,
got injured too. So, I mean, I wouldn't discount him. He's probably not as far along as some of the other guys, but I think they feel really good about that running back room right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then two other things too, I want to mention. I said this on the Sunday podcast, that going back to receivers, they've mentioned a lot about that Alec Wick guy. Another kind of like a Quinn Schultz. I haven't really heard about him, under recruited or not highly recruited. If he can be like a Matt Vandenberg for us, or like a Riley McCarron, Nick Easley type of guy, that would be really good. That's why I'm hoping he can maybe turn out to be for us, because I've heard nothing but good things about him. But once again, it's just, he's from Iowa City. He wasn't highly recruited. You don't really know much about him. So hopefully he can be that, because we obviously need that. We were, talking about the receivers at the beginning of this episode, but definitely need that at that position.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing too is how it's, at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but now it's like, thank God Sam Laporta came back, because he could have easily left last year.
Yeah.
And thank God, because like he was lining out. I mean, there were some plays that he was lining out at receiver on Saturday. Now he's not going to play receiver for us, but there's going to be a lot of looks that I think he's going to be going out.
He's going to be split out wide, especially like we were talking about earlier in the podcast with our current wide receiver situation. We might have to get creative there. And like you said, maybe it will be 3 tight end sets. And I still think the staff feels good about that Steven Stellanos that had transferred in from UL Lafayette.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize how big he was. He's like 6'5", 260. So he's like another
borderline
tackle.
Yeah, he's a borderline offensive lineman.
So I mean, and I was reading, I went back, and like Lafayette, like their running game was really good, and now he probably contributed to that, because it's essentially another offensive lineman out there. So yeah, if he can, go out and, be the run blocker for us, and you got Luke Lachey and Sam Laporta, and then that Addison Ostringa, is that his last name?
Ostringa.
Yeah.
And those guys kind of more of the going out for passes. That's good. So, but yeah, that's really it. I mean, with the receivers, it's one of those things where it does suck, because if all the guys are healthy, we really don't have that bad of a receiving core. Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, Nico Regani, and then some of the other guys. But just right now, it's really unfortunate that all these guys are getting hurt. Because then if that's the case, then you're down to not many scholarship players.
And by the way, I was right. He was a baseball commit.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I saw basketball. My bad. All right, let's get into kind of the last thing. We're going to predict. We're each going to kind of predict the Big Ten standings for this year. I'm actually going to share my screen with so anyone that's watching this on YouTube can look at this. Let's see here. I'm going to share right here. And we'll just kind of go through Google Chrome. All right, there we go. Can you guys see this?
I got it.
Okay. So this is mine. We're not going to go game by game for each team. That'd take way too much time. But these are my standings. So Big Ten East, I have Ohio State finishing 11-1, Michigan 10-2. They're probably going to go 12-0. It's so hard to go 12-0, so that's why I have them at that. I have Penn State at 9-3, Michigan State at 8-4, Maryland at 7-5, Rutgers 4-8, Indiana at 3-9. So that's kind of how I had it played out. And then we can kind of talk about more. Big Ten West, I have Iowa 9-3, 6-3. I have Wisconsin 9-3, 6-3, which that could Wisconsin could easily go 10-2 and we're out. And I probably should have done that, because looking at their schedule, they probably will go 10-2. Purdue 8-4, 5-4, Nebraska 6-6, 4-5, Minnesota 7-5, 4-5, and then Northwestern and Illinois both have 5-7. So that is mine. Let's go to Kolby's here. You want to share yours?
Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, you can talk about yours.
Yeah. Looking at Ohio State's schedule, and the guys that they returned on offense, and they hired a new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State. I think Ohio State's elite. I think they're going to be the one of the best, if not the best team in the country this year.
Yeah.
Obviously looking at their schedule, that Penn State game's a toss-up game to me. Obviously going into Happy Valley, it's probably going to be a night game, white out.
That's a game I had them losing.
That's going to be a tough game, but I think the way Ohio State's offense is built, I think that's probably a game that they can win, and I think they'll get revenge on Michigan this year. So I have them going 12-0, 9-0 in the conference, and being the winner of the Big Ten this year. I think they're just that good. Followed up by Michigan, obviously 11-1. I just at this point in time, as much as I would love to have Iowa beat Michigan at home, I think Michigan, it's hard for me to predict that after seeing last year's score. Obviously now it's going to be in Kinnick, and things can happen, and we know weird stuff happens in Kinnick, but I think that's a game that as of now, I need to give Michigan the benefit of the doubt on. So I'm going to give them that win. And then I have them losing to Ohio State for a right to go to the Big Ten championship. A team I see taking a step back this year is Michigan State. Their schedule is pretty tough. I know they brought in a lot of transfer guys, but they also lost some guys as well. If you want to scroll up to their schedule real quick, just because I think, one, they go out to, is that them? They go out to Washington early season. That's not an easy game. Well, I don't know how good Washington is this year, but I know enough to know Iowa and their struggles of going out west. It's not easy. And so, especially going out to Washington, that's going to be a tough game. I think that they'll lose to Wisconsin, and I just don't see them having the horses to compete with the three upper echelon teams in the Big Ten this year. Especially, honestly, if the Penn State game was at home, I would probably switch that and I'd give them a win there. But since it's on the road at Penn State, I'm going to have to give them that. I'm going to have to give Penn State that one.
Okay.
Going into Big Ten West, this one was tough for me. I think, we all remember that Iowa. Yeah. We all remember Iowa last year kind of lucked its way into the Big Ten championship game. It probably should have been Wisconsin's. And so while we were the recipient of the Big Ten West last year, I still think Wisconsin was probably the best team in the division. I think Wisconsin this year is going to be good. And I think they're going to probably end up in the Big Ten title game, even though I have them losing to Iowa in week 11. So I think they're going to be representing the Big Ten West. I have Iowa going 9-3. I think that here's my thoughts on Iowa's season as a whole. I think that it could go, this schedule is the toughest we've had in a long time. I think Iowa could go and end up starting 6-0. I think that as of now, I need to have them losing to Michigan. So I think they'll be 5-1 going to the Ohio State game. I obviously think they'll lose at Ohio State. And then this year, I just feel like it's the year that either Nebraska or Minnesota is going to snag us. And as much as I hate that, I think it's going to be one of those two teams that end up getting a late season win on us to help us, not to help us, but to make us finish 9-3. And so I think as of now, I have them losing at Minnesota, which gives Minnesota the tiebreaker over us, which will make us finish third in the division. But that is all hingent on how our offense looks midway through the season, because that could change. And I have no idea where Nebraska is going to be. They are a really tough read for me. Looking at their schedule, I mean, their schedule, they have the ability to start out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 6-1. I could see them beating Purdue, but I could also see them losing to Indiana and Purdue and Oklahoma.
They're not going to lose Indiana at home. If anything, they're going to lose to Northwestern first game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know enough about them. I don't think that they're going to be anything special this year, but I think they're going to be a tough out. So I'm pretty bullish on Minnesota this year. I think they got a good team. They had what I thought was the best running back in the Big Ten going into last year in Mohamed Ibrahim. And he's back this year. He tore his Achilles, but he's full on back. So that's my standings. And
what about, okay. So one thing before I go to Tyler, so with Wisconsin, the only thing that I I think that will kind of plague them this year. And I agree. I mean, I have them going 9-3. You have them 10-2, so it's not like it's that much of a difference. But they have, we talk about how bad our passing game, receiving core might be, especially if we're injured. They don't have one guy on their like wide receivers that have caught more than 3 passes. I remember seeing. So like, yeah, they have a good running back, but like, I mean, you need to throw the ball. And then their defense, they're only bringing back, I think it was like 3 guys. Now, granted, they're always good in defense, but like, I don't think like they're going to be good, but like, are they going to be that dominant? Like, are they going to actually be able to go at Michigan State and win that game? Like, I don't think, or like, I think, at Nebraska, I could see Nebraska finally beating them. So like, I don't know. I mean, I see some more losses there for them.
Until Iowa can prove me wrong in terms of beating Wisconsin and taking it for themselves, I need to keep Wisconsin at the top of the division. I think obviously you're right. But I do think they have a huge offensive line. They're a good offensive line. And then they have Braylon Allen, who is the next great Wisconsin running back. And then Jim Leonard, just like he's such a good defensive coach. I would put him and Phil Parker in that category of elite defensive coaches. So as of now, I have, I agree with you, Colin. I could see them going 9-3, 2 with a loss at, either Michigan State or Nebraska. But that would still give, would that give Minnesota the tiebreaker in that case?
Well, they would beat Minnesota.
Yeah, but if we're okay, then they would still go to the title if Minnesota beats us.
So I'm going to go back to mine. So this is just, I had them losing like at Ohio State, at Michigan, at Iowa. Now for Iowa, this is what I have for right now. Because I think these 2 games, the Michigan and Illinois game, it kind of goes, and I think Tyler kind of agreed. I think you might have the same thing, Tyler, where if we beat Michigan, we're going to be riding such a high that I could see us losing at Illinois. That's just something. It's just typical Iowa.
Well, and you're looking ahead to the bye, Ohio State a little bit too. Yeah.
And then tough. I have us losing at Purdue because until we beat them, I'm just going to have that as a loss. So those are my 3 losses.
That's the one thing this year. I think Iowa finally gets Purdue. I think Purdue, that's actually one I didn't touch on. I think Purdue is going to take a step back this year. I don't think they're as good as what some of the national pundits are saying. I think they're going to struggle. I think they have a harder schedule this year than they did last year. Go to their Colin right now.
Well, prior to this, like before today, I actually had them beating Penn State. But the more I think about it, because I agree with you, the more I read about Purdue and Penn State, I think Penn State's going to go there and actually beat them.
Yeah.
So I actually have them losing to Penn State. Originally, like for the last couple of weeks, I actually had Penn State winning that, or Purdue winning that game. The more I think about it, I'm like,
They lost David Bell. They lost, I think their running back
lines ranked 14th in one of the magazines that I saw.
Yeah. And so George Karlaftis, he's gone. He single-handedly made Iowa look like shit last year.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to struggle this year. I think I had them at 7-5. I mean, when looking at Vegas's over-unders, I think I'm right on line with almost every single one of them.
Yeah. Really?
I'm higher on Purdue, but I agree with you. I think it's a team that I'm almost like.
I'm going to go to yours, Tyler.
Well, I didn't put down at the bottom.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which I didn't.
But you can just say what you're at for Big Two.
So the East, I've got Ohio State, kind of like you, Colin. I put them at 11-1. Easily could go 12-0.
Yeah,
Kolby touched on it.
Who do you have them losing to? Penn State.
Penn State.
Yeah.
I think Colin and I talked about this in a different podcast. It's just one of those games where Penn State. It's gonna be a whiteout. It's gonna be a night game. I could see that being a tough game for them, but Ohio State's beaten them how many times in a row too. So it's just hard to go 12-0, but I do think, they're going to be in the national championship picture. So it's going to be,
I go up to that
11-1 or 12-0 for them. I've got actually, and this is where I've got Penn State at number 2 going 9-3.
Penn State's got so much talent.
Yeah. And I do think Michigan, they lost a ton on defense. Obviously, they're going to replenish that with a great talent. I do think, their run game was elite last year. And how are they going to replicate that? I don't know. So I've got Penn State at a tiebreaker over Michigan, both going 9-3. Michigan at number 3. Michigan State 8-4. sitting in the 4th spot in the East there.
You have them losing at Washington, like Kolby.
Yep. I think it's just again, it's an unfamiliar game territory. I could see them losing. Maryland, I have them going, I think 5-7. They're a team, again, they have one of the better quarterbacks, but their schedule is, playing in the East is
tough,
pretty tough. So I've got them going 5-7. Kind of rounding out the East, I've got Rutgers 4-8, and then Indiana 3-9 overall.
Indiana, I do not think. I wish we played Indiana this year. They're going to not be very good. All right, Big Ten West then.
So kind of like Kolby, I have Wisconsin. Unfortunately, for Iowa's sake, right now winning the West, it's one of those situations where I do think, talking about kind of Purdue and Wisconsin, I do think Iowa can get one of them. It's just I have to see it to believe it, and I don't want to just say it, until again we see it. So I've got Wisconsin 9-3, Purdue 9-3, Wisconsin beating Purdue and the tiebreak. I'm higher on Purdue. Again, I think they're going to have one of the, if not the best offense, clearly, I think in the West division.
And they have a good quarterback. I mean,
they do
have a good quarterback, and things can happen.
Right, and I know they lost David Bell. I still think wide receiver, they've got plenty of talent there. But the offensive line thing is definitely a real thing, though, which makes me kind of question that. But yeah, I've got them going 9-3. Iowa actually losing to both of those teams, so unfortunately they're going 8-4. I have them right now, and that's predicated on the offense. Clearly.
Yeah.
So, and then I've got Nebraska right behind Iowa going 6-6. Minnesota 7-5.
So me and
Illinois,
Tyler aren't as high on Minnesota.
Right.
I don't see Minnesota, props to them. They're a physical team.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I differentiate them in Nebraska.
Once again, it's one day, but like the Big Ten crew had a lot of good things to say about them when they went up there a couple days ago. And like some of like the videos, like their offensive line looks huge. And like, they're a physical team. Their that offensive coordinator is back from back in 2019 when they did obviously really good. So they might be a lot better than maybe what I'm kind of thinking or what I thought. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's something where maybe here soon
the Big Ten guys traveled, and they so far I think said it was their favorite team in the West.
Yeah,
maybe. Is that what they said? I don't know. I guess I just saw that they really liked them.
Do they have question marks on the offensive line as well?
Yeah, they had to replace, but they're all like transfers is what I remember. Yeah.
No, Kolby makes like excellent point on Minnesota. I mean, and regardless, it's almost like we just assume that we're going to beat Iowa State, Minnesota, Nebraska every year because we do. One of these years they're going to get us too. So, I agree that could easily be a loss in between Nebraska and Minnesota this year. I've got Illinois going 5-7 and then Northwestern 4-8. They're still some years away talent wise to compete yet.
For Minnesota, kind of my notes for them that when we talked about them, they only have one offensive line back. Their center, John Schmitz, who's really good, best center probably in the Big Ten. They lost their leading tackler from last year, and they lost 6 out of their top 8 defensive line. So that's the reason why, like prior to this,
the line of scrimmage,
I was kind of like iffy about, but if they are looking that pretty good and stuff like that, they got their OC back, like they might be a lot better than
they dipped in the transfer portal too.
Yeah,
right?
They did. Yep. But you never know if that will. Mesh.
I know. And these were back when we did it, like episode 1. Obviously now you get to see it. Big Ten crew gets to get out there, fall camp. You see a lot more, and
we got to remember that those don't necessarily mean anything. But true. It's good to get a gauge of where those guys think they're at. But again, it's just one practice.
Yeah.
Because Tuesday for Iowa could have been a bad practice, whereas Saturday Ferentz left that practice and felt good.
Well, I was gonna say, isn't some of that? I feel like it's maybe not scripted, but they want to put on a good show for those people. Because they're going to get talked about too.
Well, but they always like those Big Ten crews. Like they're never going to say anything too bad. They're always
another thing. Iowa wasn't even in full shells that day. Iowa was in shorts, and so we got to take that into account too. It wasn't full speed.
So and then Tyler, one thing because me and you both have us beating Michigan, losing at Illinois. I was thinking more about this. So if we do beat Michigan, I think just because that happened last year when we lost after Penn State doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen again. And maybe with that happening last year, maybe that will make it different this year where it's like, okay, like the team knows because a lot of those guys are back this year.
Purdue is also our kryptonite.
Exactly. And it's Purdue versus, Illinois.
Point.
So
my thing was more just are they looking ahead to that, getting to that bye week, getting to Ohio State? You worry about that a little bit, but I agree. It could be different.
And I'm going to ask Kolby this because obviously, Tyler, we talked about it. But Kolby, what are your thoughts on Iowa State game? Do you think they're a little bit tough? Because in my eyes, I think they're going to be probably better than they were last year. Just because
I think Iowa's in a lose-lose situation again.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think. I personally think Iowa State their record will be better than what it was last year. I don't think by the time they get to the Iowa game that they're going to be ready to be that team yet.
Yeah.
Especially, and they could prove me wrong, but Iowa State is notoriously known under Matt Campbell for a lot of slow starts to enter the year. And I think by that time, Iowa State's offensive line still probably won't be fully gelled. They're still breaking in Hunter Deckers. And, I think their defense, Will McDonald's a stud. That guy, he's amazing. I think though, but they replaced, it takes a while to replace. How many starters did they lose?
They lost 18? A lot.
Yeah. That's not easy to replace. Now, I think Iowa State ends up going maybe 8-4 this year, but I think it helps that it's at home too.
Yes.
And so
first time since 2018 seems like it's been forever since we've actually played.
So I personally yes, it's a rivalry game. They could beat us. I think it's one of those years that I feel like Iowa's defense is so good that I think that helps quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, no, I agree.
Especially breaking in a quarterback for Iowa State that, has never really been on the road in a hostile environment. And,
imagine that being your first true road game.
Yeah. And,
and going up against a defense like that.
That's what I mean.
He played last year in garbage minutes. Iowa was playing prevent defense, had half of our guys out. Yeah. And that was
throwing to the running back.
Yeah, that was a small sample size. And I know a lot of Iowa State fans took that and were like, well, and I'm
the one thing I will say though, with Iowa State is they actually, ever since Campbell's been there and John Heacock, their defensive coordinator, they do a really good job with our offense. It seems like we can never.
Well, and that's one of the things I'm encouraged about is I think our running game this year is going to be the best it's been since. I'm very bullish on our running game. I think we have running backs in the room that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think Tyler Goodson's going to end up being the third running back for Green Bay. But do I think he fit Iowa's system? And do I think he was in the system the years where we probably needed a different style running back? Yes.
Yeah.
He was too kind of like he wouldn't just hit the hole. He was.
But go back to 2020. When we had a decent line, he looked good.
Yeah.
He was a good player. And I think last year he was just a product of playing in front of a really bad line. And that's not the way his game. His game doesn't translate to that. I think this year we have guys
with Gavin and LaShawn. Those two guys
I'm really excited for our running game. And so I think that my hope is we can move the ball in Iowa State this year, especially on a line that's besides Will McDonald is pretty young. And they're going to be breaking in a lot of new guys. So
yeah, I'm excited for that game. Just because it seems like it's been forever since Iowa State had to go to Kinnick. Yeah. It's like, God, it's like, okay, one of these years, let's go back to Kinnick.
Exactly.
So, and then one last thing, Kolby, since you probably won't be on the show next week, and Tyler and I will discuss this, so I'm not going to ask you, Tyler, just because we'll go over this next week.
Yeah.
Northwestern Nebraska game. Obviously, it's next week already. It's the only really game on. Illinois plays that day too, but they play. I forgot who they play, but Wyoming maybe. What are your thoughts on that game? Who do you see winning?
Do I want to see Northwestern come in and win that game? 100% yes. Do I think Pat Fitzgerald could come in and win that game? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think that's going to happen? No. I think Nebraska is my thought on Nebraska this year is that I think Nebraska will start out really hot, win their first 3 games, start 3-0. I think they'll lose a close one to Oklahoma. And then I think I think they'll be 5-1, but I think that they're very front loaded on their schedule, and then it gets a little tougher. And I think they'll by midseason I think they'll cool down a little bit. I still think they can go. I think they can be a bowl team this year, but I think 6-6 is probably where they're at now.
Yeah.
Pat Fitzgerald somehow in odd years is like this magician of a coach. So I'm knocking on wood that he goes in there and does something that I mean,
it wouldn't shock me.
It's not. It's no secret to me that I hate Nebraska. I'm not a fan of them. I honestly would love for them to just leave the Big Ten. But so I would love to see them lose. I'd love to see Pat Fitzgerald get revenge on them. Nebraska absolutely crushed them last year.
Exactly. It was like 56-7 or something like that.
I mean, I think Nebraska is probably is the better team. They're probably at home, probably a 10-point favorite, 10 to 12-point favorite. I think actually the line, they might be 11.5. So, bettors do not give Pat it doesn't give the Wildcats much room at all.
Yeah.
So I think Nebraska will win. Now, do I hope that's the case? Not at all.
Yeah. I know Tyler has Nebraska winning too. I think I have Northwestern going in and shocking, because and the only reason why is because like you bring up Pat Fitzgerald, and maybe it's just more like me just hoping. So I'm just thinking that, and it probably won't happen. But I also think too, like the pressure is all on Nebraska.
None on Northwestern. Break year for Scott Frost.
Yeah. There's nothing on Northwestern. I mean, they're expected to lose. They're 12.5-point underdogs.
I know you would love to just text Doman after that game.
Oh, we've talked about it.
He's already setting himself up. He told me today, hey buddy, no texting or calling me in Ireland, because it's going to cost me money with the international coverage I have. So he told me I can't text or call him. So he's already setting that up.
A millionaire?
Just in case.
Hey,
when you cut up clips for like Twitter, just let's use this clip for like then tag him in it.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be too happy about that.
Shout out Mike Doman.
But anyways, well, I guess that's it. I mean, I guess if you want to come, definitely be on this show more times than not this year, especially when the season starts, because it's so fun.
Sure.
After a game, to go over games and stuff like that, and then we're gonna try to get Kramer or Fuzz on that Iowa State week. That'd be fun. Be good time.
Right, so I'm down, boys. That was fun. I'll try to get on as much as I can this year, and it's just fun to be talking about Hawkeye football again. Yeah, for sure. We are now, what is it? When we're recording this Wednesday, we'll have this out to you guys tomorrow. So by tomorrow, we are 16 days away from Hawkeye football. Let's do it. Let's go. Hawkeye football.
We're getting closer. So, all right, boys. It was fun. We'll talk to you guys later, and go Hawks.